Hey, what's up everybody? BDO44 coming at you with another video. Alright, so this is what we're talking about. The Los Angeles Lakers and the New Orleans Pelicans. They're going to be playing tonight at Crypto.com Arena. I believe the game's at 7 o'clock. Don't quote me on that. Somewhere around there, you know me. Somewhere around the accuracy, but not quite all the way there with those times. But if it's in LA, it's usually between 6 and 7:45. So if you tune in around there, you're definitely going to see some Laker basketball eventually on a playing night. Now, the thing about it is, we are coming off a game where we got stomped all the way out by the Portland Trail Blazers, and I, BDO44, didn't see it. I did see portions of the game, but it wasn't enough to really get anything out of it. So this was the first game I missed on the season, and because of it, I'm not necessarily fully in the know, which is something I don't really like. But nevertheless, it is what's going on. So what I can say is I did homework on our opponent, the New Orleans Pelicans, and they've, had a pretty good stretch here. 4 out of 5 games that they've won. Their last matchup was against the Oklahoma City Thunder, and it was a game where you see some really interesting stats in regards to Brandon Ingram. He went for over 30 points, only had 1 assist. I say that's interesting because in the matchups before that, he was diming all over the place. 8 assists in the previous 2 matchups prior to. And it's just one of those things where it's like they found a way to win the game by 3. But it throws you off because if you're looking for Brandon Ingram to either be a passer, a facilitator, or a scorer, it's hard to tell. And I don't know if that's on purpose, you know what I'm saying? Or if it's something that he was just taking what the defense gave him, etc. in that particular game. But I find that as I'm studying Brandon Ingram, I realize he threw a monkey wrench at me. I don't know if he's going to be a passer tonight because he literally didn't look to pass at all in the previous game. And then when I was watching highlights, the boy was diming all over the place against OKC, against the Hawks. He was just diming. He looked like Magic Johnson or something out there. So for me, it's like if he's going to do that, it's going to make him a very dangerous basketball player if he's going to continue to facilitate at that level that I've seen him do over these last 4 games in these highlights. It's different, man. But against OKC, I don't know. In the stats, it didn't say that he was doing a lot of passing. Now, that doesn't mean he wasn't passing. It may have meant that guys weren't making shots. But it's just very interesting to me that when you try to anticipate what he may be trying to do game plan-wise, that stat is there, that 1 assist after all these great games of him diming all over the place. So, Larry Nance Jr. is a guy who's providing him size. Jackson Hayes is someone who's down there healthy right now. Valanciunas is playing well. He was 5 of 6 in the last game. Of course, you would imagine him to have high percentages given the fact that he plays close to the basket at all times. Rebounds the ball. Offensive rebounds are going to be a thing. Trey Murphy. You know Trigger Murphy is going to be one of the best shooters in the game going forward. I've already told you guys that. I told you guys that last year. And the way that he's been playing as of late is just it's a reflection of the coach having more faith in him. And I think he's doing good things on the defensive end that's making it so that they trust him to do what it is that he does best, which is let it fly and play a lot. And his athleticism and his ability to just overall be long makes him a very difficult shooting guard to match up against. So when you consider him, Najee Marshall, now Josh Richardson, who was just traded to the Pelicans very recently. I just found that out. I completely forgotten about that trade. But he brings a different element to their bench that makes them a bit fuller, a bit stronger, and a bit more defensive. And so I think he was a good piece for them. Given the fact that they were looking for a piece like OG Anunoby, they didn't leave themselves without someone to fill the role that they were looking for. So I think that was a very good pickup for them to try to boost to their wing position. Alvarado, man. Are we going to really let Alvarado do this to us again? Obviously, in the last matchup we had against the Pelicans, it was an infamous one because our guy Wenyen Gabriel was graced a few minutes out of a week where the coach wasn't playing him at all. And that's what he ultimately kind of gave into, was the Alvarado inbound play that we always mention every single time. I don't care what's going on. If you're playing against the New Orleans Pelicans and Alvarado is available, you need to be on extra high alert on all inbounds plays all game long. That is just the rule. If it's the Pelicans and he's playing, he's looking to steal the ball from you. He's looking to do something, especially in one of these high-profile matchups with a high quality team like the Lakers or the Celtics or something like that. He's going to try to get you It's his calling card. It's how he's going to make his money in this league. Is continuing to do this. So you got to watch for him hiding in a little corner. He's going to hide behind a ref. He's going to pretend like he's out of bounds. He's going to do all kinds of different things to try to put himself in a position to steal the inbounds from you. He never fails to try this against the Lakers. We need to know that he's going to do it again. I tell you, man, he's never going to catch me off guard with this. As distracted as I've been, I'm never going to look at a Pelicans games and not think of him doing that. It's not going to happen. So I expect my team to feel the same way, and yet we always get caught. Let's not get caught. He's going to be hiding. Period. So I had that in your mind earlier. This is a team that's been playing well as a whole. I believe they had, in spite of BI's 1 assist and everybody having no more than 3 assists, they ended up having a game with like 6 or 7 players in double figures, which is why I was just kind of blown away at the stats of the game that I saw that they had, where they won the game by 3 against the OKC Thunder. Jalen Williams is really starting to break out on the other end, so he was kind of torching them. And, Giddey and those guys, SGA, but they were able to get the victory just with some real fantastic play. Guys like CJ McCollum, we must be careful with CJ. He's playing really well. It's one of those things where over the last several games, he's really put his stamp on things. So we got to just be on high alert about the overall perimeter defense that we are using. We've talked a lot about drop coverage that I was listening to Jason Timpf talk about in regards to, more of the detailed aspects of it. And I can tell you, it's not for us. Based on what it is that he described, where you're basically fighting around, you're fighting around screens at all times, and it's kind of one of those situations where you got to exert a lot of energy if you use it too much. I think that advice that he applied to the conversation is something that can stick with me and hopefully stick with the team if they watch that particular content, because at the end of the day, drop coverage, as he described it, is something that requires a lot of energy and a lot of talent to be able to really execute properly. And if you run it in spurts with the right people, it can be dope. But if you have the same guy trying to fight around the same screens over 48 minutes, it can really wear down the team, especially if he's not overly talented. So Dennis Schroeder, I think, plays fantastic in defensive situations. And I think, as Jason Timpf said, it's probably because of the foot speed in this defense that ultimately puts us in a position to want to go with Dennis Schroeder as opposed to maybe some other guys who are not as quick. But at the end of the day, maybe we should try to structure what it is that we're doing defensively to make a bit more sense as it pertains to the type of talent that we have. Because if we can do other things to get to point B, other than this drop coverage, which was point A basically, if we can do other things to get us the defensive stops that we're looking for, then that would probably be something to try to do. Because at the end of the day, if we don't have the personnel to make the coverage make sense, then obviously the coverage is not for us. It could very well work. It just ain't gonna work for us. So that's something I want to be open-minded about. Obviously, we talk about working on our different weaknesses as a team. And so we have to discover what the new ones are now that we've brought in new guys. Of course, D'Angelo Russell, he's been a part of what it is that we're doing. We're incorporating him in as a shooting guard. Yesterday, it was announced that Darvin Ham wanted to kind of give us an understanding of what his foreseeable future starting lineups would be. And he has a backcourt of D'Angelo Russell, Dennis Schroeder. I believe it's Rui Hachimura, Adrian Braun. I believe that's what he wants to do. I think the problem is we have so many real shooting guards that starting 2 point guards in your backcourt when you have a shooting guard log jam could potentially be problematic. You want to start at least one of them damn shooting guards that we got. We got 6 or 7 of them, coach. So that's really what it comes down to. You got Lonnie Walker here, who was starting at the start of the season. I know he didn't do as much on the defensive end, but he did great on the offensive end. I know he's not as much of a defensive player, so you probably don't want to pair him next to D'Angelo as much. But to me, Dennis Schroeder, you gave him 30 minutes in the last game, went 1 for 7. I think we walked out of there with a couple rebounds, maybe 6 assists. I don't think much of those stats when I look at how much time he was given. And I look at D'Angelo Russell as a pure point guard who's playing the shooting guard position comfortably because he's always been able to. Even in college, he could do that. So it's not a thing. But you want the person next to him to potentially be a defensive player. And while Dennis Schroeder can be
In this situation next to D'Lo, it depends on the matchup if I really feel comfortable with that. Um, I think there are other ways to go. Troy Brown is a good way to go. Troy Brown is a very good way to go, just to give yourself enough size. I know that he's not the most gifted of those players, but he is the tallest and the longest of them, and can play the shooting guard position very comfortably if you want to do other things with putting Rui, Braun, and AD together, which I'm actually thinking is not the best thing. Um, I don't know what is. I don't pretend to know what is, but I do believe that size is the way. So for me, I'm looking at, obviously Mo Bamba's supposed to be returning. We haven't gotten into that. I think he's supposed to come back today. I don't know that he is. He might still have one more game of suspension. But when he comes back, you want to put him in position to possibly be your starting 182 Braun 3 maybe. Because I just don't like AD and Braun in that front court together. I don't like that at all. But maybe putting Troy Brown at the 3 or Rui Hachimura at the 4 could possibly give them the size and the help that they need to kind of make that make a little more sense. Maybe instead of Mo Bamba, you put Vando there at the 4 and then AD at the 5, and let Vando kind of do 5 things while AD's on the floor in the 5 position, so to speak. I think that's a decent option, even though it kind of takes away from the energy on your bench. Maybe you make that Wenyen Gabriel to strengthen your bench with Vando and Hachimura on your second unit. You know what I mean? There are a lot of different options. And you still got to find a way to use all of the shooting guards necessary. So there's going to be some times where you're going to need to put Austin Reeves at the 2 and the 3. There's going to be some times where you need to put Lonnie on the floor. There's going to be some times where you need to put Beasley on the floor and let him cook. Let him get enough shots up. Can't overreact to him missing shots, sitting him down and mess up his rhythm, trying to get other guys like Lonnie and Dennis and D'Lo into that shooting guard spot. So it's like, look, all these little funny little things that Darvin likes to do with his lineup can be very problematic with this particular unit, because these are younger dudes and they do have a lot of them are playing for contracts. Schroeder, Lonnie, D'Lo, these guys are playing for contracts. They don't have time to look bad because coach wants to lean on stuff that, once again, it doesn't necessarily make sense to anybody but him. And I'm telling you, this is another one of those. D'Lo and Dennis Schroeder are not your starting backcourt, ladies and gentlemen. Not if your coach is strategizing properly each and every night. Now, he can work with it some nights, although it wouldn't be advised based on all that we've talked about here. But at the same time, it's not necessarily something you want to do when you are putting yourself in a position to go up against certain matchups with quicker and bigger offensive guards. The Jaylen Browns, the Anthony Edwards. If you send D'Lo at them, it's going to go bad. And if Schroeder's their help, it's going to be worse. You're going to need bigger people out there. And so tonight, you're going to be going up against Trey Murphy. You're going to be going up against CJ McCollum. You're going to be going up against Brandon Ingram. And you're going to need to be on your point in regards to this rotation situation tonight if you're going to beat this team who's won 4 out of the last 5 games. We've lost 4 out of the last 5 games. That's with or without the trades being made, without Braun, etc. AD's been down there. Obviously, there's been much said about how he's played. I'm not going to get into that too much because I haven't seen as much as all of you have, given the fact that Portland game just didn't get a whole lot of eyesight from me. But at the end of the day, 20 rebounds, 3 blocks. I can live with that type of production, 8 to 18. That's okay. 18 shots is cool. I'd like him to shoot more, especially if Braun is not on the floor. So, I just need to see him go out there and try to work on him getting back in positions to get easy buckets and take advantage of who's there to take advantage of. Because what we know for a fact is that Anthony Davis was facing single coverage in that Portland game in situations where he could have cooked some of those folks. And I do think that him not doing so could be maybe some discomfort in regards to that foot or whatever he might have been going through in his personal life that had him down or whatever it may have been. I don't think he's all the way shook that off. So, given the fact that we're playing against the Pelicans, a win against this particular team, I think would be very good for Anthony Davis. And I'm hopeful that we can take some of what we did in the last game, particularly in the fourth quarter with Malik Beasley shooting the ball as well as he did, and kind of keep him hot and carry that momentum into this game. Because we're going to need three-point shooting tonight against CJ and against Trey Murphy and BI. They're going to shoot the ball very well, and we should expect it. And given the fact that we gave up 25 3-point makes in the last game, letting Portland shoot about as well as any team could possibly shoot. And granted, you got to give them credit for doing so. But I think that when you consider this drop coverage that was used, a lot has been said about it not working out. So I just want us to consider that, read what we need to read in regards to that, study our tape from that particular game, and try to learn from the mistakes that may have been made. And if it was a tip your hat because they made 26 shots moment, then tip your hat because they made 26 shots. But I do not believe there's a such thing when you let a team shoot 48% and they attempt 48 shots or what have you. Nothing like that should be taking place. So that's what I want to see. We gotta fix our scheme and make it make sense and not be too stubborn not to, because we don't have time. We don't have time to be losing basketball games, Los Angeles. So that's one of the things that we gotta admit, that while we're making these mistakes and losing these games and fighting hard, that we are trying to win something or at least get to the playoffs. And there's not a lot of games left to really determine our fate. The Lakers are going to have to find a way to start winning these basketball games. We can't let the lack of continuity with new players, guys being out with rotation circumstances and injury, coaches' decision-making or anything of that nature, referees and them not giving us calls or what have you. None of those things we can afford to allow us to drop games. There's no Russell coming through the door. There's no small ball here. There's no reason for us to be losing like that going forward. I think that there should be some reason to believe that there's been some continuity found since this team has been home a little bit. Got, that long road trip. Obviously, the last game was in Portland, but this game was here in LA. I expect they've had a practice or two since these trades have been made. I want to start seeing some improvement. That's what I'm hopeful to see from the team. I just want to continue to drive home the point. If Anthony Davis is not 100%, we do have players that should be able to play, to handle business, to help us win games. It's just about putting the right rotations on the floor after these trades were made. We don't have a shortage of guys who can put up points. Without Bron and without AD, we should still be able to put up at least 105 points in a game. Without those two, especially with the type of shooters that we got at this point. So I want to see this team look to score the ball. New Orleans Pelicans only scored 103 points in the last game. That's it. I think they had a total of 19 or 20 assists, if I'm not mistaken. That's not the type of production that's supposed to beat the Los Angeles Lakers. If they come out and they don't produce more than they did, they should lose. So put that pressure on them. Make CJ score more. Make BI do more. You know what I mean? It became a situation where he scored a lot, attempted a lot of shots, but pretty much everybody else shot a balance of shots. It was basically him all game long against the OKC Thunder. And so what we need to do is pay attention to what he's doing. Understand that if you do crowd him, he can turn into a passer. But it's his jump shot he's looking to take care of. It's his mid-range shot that he's looking to just pick you apart with, just like CJ. And with Trigger on the floor, you know that guarding the perimeter is necessary. And watch for Alvarado in the corner because he likes to hit that shot quite a bit. So these are the type of things we're paying attention to as Laker fans, man. We understand that our team is new. Like I said, no continuity's found. But this team, they're going to need to find a way to win. Because if we don't, all the things that we've just done, we're not for this season. We can't say it's for nothing because we're going to have a lot of these guys next year. But the stuff that we're trying to do for this season, it means nothing if we're continuing to drop games. Bron or no Bron, AD or no AD, this team needs to be accountable for itself. And it starts with the head coach putting the right players on the floor, and it just is what it is because we all know that. It starts with him and it ends with him. So I do believe that the Lakers should be considering adding people to his coaching staff to help him with the things he's deficient in if they're very serious about winning this year. If you're serious, you can't leave him alone to make some of these decisions he's been making this first half of this season. You know what I mean? That's where I'm at with it. Some of the timeout decisions, some of the rotational decisions, situational basketball decisions. They just need to be taken out of his hands if they're not going to fire the man. And if you're serious about winning. I'm on board with keeping the rookie coach. But if you have to keep the rookie coach and you have to win, then you got to make amendments in regards to that. So that's just where we're at, man. It's facts over feelings, just like he said. We're throwing that right back at the team because at the end of the day, if you're serious about winning, you got to do certain things that are not conventional. And stepping away from unconventional lineup situations that don't bring about the positive results that you're looking for is definitely the way to go. Got to step away from that. So that's where I'm at with it. I know New Orleans is going to give us all we can handle. Like I said, this team has been winning. I think it's a lot to be said for the Vegas odds, given the fact that they've won their 4 out of their last 5, and we've lost 4 out of our last 5, and we're favored to win this game by I think +8 or something like that. So that's really different, given the fact that I haven't seen us be favored to win any games pretty much all season long, like really none of them. So that was interesting to me, but. Yeah, the Lakers are favored to win tonight, and I think that means that they expect LeBron James to give it a go. That's what I think that means. And I don't believe we've seen him since he broke the record. I don't think he's played a single game. And I do believe, if I'm not wrong, this is the final game before the All-Star break. So while Vegas thinks he's going to play, I actually believe he's not. I think, it's my own humble opinion, that he will probably scratch this particular matchup and play in the All-Star game, and then come back for us next week and be ready to go full-fledged. I think that's the best way to go. I don't see any fruit in him playing one more game before the All-Star break. We're going to lose it or we're going to win it. It don't matter, because at the end of the day, this team is prone to lose more. So this particular matchup, if he cannot go and it's going to be to the betterment of his health that he doesn't, scratch him. That's what I have to say. No more scheduled losses, but at the same time, if he's going to be out of action for as long as foreseeable future because we keep on having him run on this thing, I don't like it. I'm not going to ask him not to play in his All-Star game because, this could be his final All-Star game. Now, that does not mean that I don't expect him to play next year, but it does mean next year anything could happen. You know what I mean? You don't want to put anything in the world, but you just want to make sure that a guy in year 20 is able to be featured in a game of that magnitude. So that's what it is, man. I do expect him to play that one. But tonight, they say he's going to possibly try to give it a go. I'm not. He's day-to-day. Let's just say that. Let's see. Austin Reeves, he's been shooting very well. I know a lot has been said about his defense, but again, if you put him in coverages that don't allow him to succeed next to guys who cannot help him, and then just like everybody else, he's going to struggle. Far be it for me to tell you how he looked against Portland. I do not know. But in the highlights that I saw, I didn't remember him making as much of an impact as I would have liked to have seen, or as I saw him make in the game prior to. Because he was shooting his backside off in that game against the Golden State Warriors. And we were really proud of that particular matchup. We did all the things we needed to do. From what I understand, people were praising Darvin Ham's lineups and rotations in that particular matchup. They said that the coverage that he used particularly really worked on Clay and those guys and Jordan and those guys. So I just leave it to the experts to say that was a really good game for him. But unfortunately, he turned around, did the same thing against Portland, and it did not have the same result. So it just depends. It's like, it's one thing that may work against one opponent may not necessarily work against someone else. And so you just got to be as adaptable as possible. And I think that's where we want to get better. The Lakers going to have to adapt to their circumstances a bit better as they come their way. Just as we would adapt out of Russell Westbrook's circumstances when he's not shooting well, you got to do the same thing with other players as well. So that's something we want to say. Dennis Schroeder stayed on the floor a bit too much in that Portland game from what the stats showed us. And I trust that all the Laker fans who said that knew what they were talking about. So I'm going to roll with that opinion. Rui Hachimura, it's just tricky to try to get him worked into the equation, man, because I don't know I don't know what really works for him yet. But I know I want him shooting the ball from the mid-range. I want him to feel comfortable to take his shot because he's got really, really good stuff. And he can score a lot for us. No matter what's going on, he can score and he can rebound. And that is valuable. I just want to make sure we're putting him in the right spot. I think backup power forward is probably his best position. Small forward at times, although I don't really love that. I like him as the 4. I really do. I think he's really good at the 4, next to Bron, next to AD. So in that starting lineup, see, that's the thing. I don't know if I love him in the starting lineup, but I like him next to the guys in the starting lineup. Does that make any sense? Probably not. But there are other rotations other than having him with Dennis Schroeder and D'Angelo Russell. And you remove one of AD and Bron and keep him on the floor with one of the two. That's how I have it in my head. So, it's kind of, it's iffy, man, because you got your best players all playing the same position, kind of. But nevertheless, you do like the fact that they're out there to choose from. Vanderbilt. If it were up to me, you just play him all the game long. You never take him off the floor. And that's it, because you know he can help you anywhere and he can guard everybody. But he's not going to be able to play every position. You might be able to get away with him playing at the 3 if you keep running him in certain situations where you want him to do certain things, but you don't want to do that. You want him at the 4 too. You want him at the 5 as well. So now it's about how you work him, Rui, and as well as obviously Braun and AD and Winion all into the mix. It's a good problem to have, but you kind of want them all on the floor at the same time, to be honest with you. And that's not the best way to go, obviously. So, D'Angelo Russell needs to be a part of what you're talking about. And if Dennis Schroeder's playing well, you definitely want him part of what you're talking about. But if not, next man up, Beasley. Next man up, Austin. Next man up, Lonnie, Max. So as I said in the beginning of the video, how do you get a good rotation that works for you, and how do you get everybody to play in their position to their strengths? I don't know that we're constructed to do that yet. I think we're gonna need to still tweak the roster at the end of the season for next year to make a lot more sense from here. So that's kind of the little flaw that we have right now, and may have to keep. I guess. I mean, it just is what it is. So, yeah, I want to see what the Lakers do. Obviously, if Mo Bamba comes in, we'll have some interest with the center position that makes sense. I do want to see Devon Reed get more than 7 minutes if he's a lockdown, man. He went 1 for 1 in the last game. Didn't lay eyes on that, obviously, but if a guy does that, I expect him to get maybe like 10 minutes or 14 minutes tonight. And if he continues to play well, depending on what you can do with your roster, he needs to be on the floor, especially if he can do the things that help us with drop coverage. Being a lockdown as he is, maybe you want him chasing those screens as opposed to maybe Dennis or some of those guys. So I want to explore that, man. I'm not afraid to play defensive players, especially since we have so many offensive players. You put Devon Reed next to all of our offensive players, and suddenly his offensive, whatever it is he provides, will be enough no matter what it is. So that's what it is. Vando, same thing. Whatever he provides should be enough, depending on who you put him next to. So, that's what it is, man. We're probably going to fall in love with the fact that Beasley went 6 for 12, which means I expect to see him on the floor a lot. That's just natural. You're gonna give a guy opportunities to continue to do well. In theory, we didn't really do that with all our players before the trade, but whatever. I expect to see him on the floor more as a guard who shoots the 3. What I don't want to do is have another repeat of the night before, where he went 1 for 7 or 8, whatever it was, and we left him on the floor just like we did with Dennis Schroeder against Portland. We got to be able, again, to get away from players, especially if there's functionalities to only shoot, because you're going to need playmaking and rebounding and all these other things, defense on the floor. And if he's not hot, he's not giving that to you. So that's important. We understand that. So, yeah, that's where we're at, man. We're preparing for the New Orleans Pelicans. Brandon Ingram jump shooting and passing is something to look at. Trey Murphy can go for 30 on you right now. He did a few games ago. Who was that? Against the Hawks, I believe it was. He lit them up. I think it might have been Sacramento. One of those 2 games, he really went off for more than 30 points. So understand that Trey Murphy is starting to come into his own. And I've been telling y'all he's one of the best young shooters in the league. I've been saying that from the beginning. So there should be no surprise if he kills us, because he has that type of stuff in him. And we've been allowing 3-point shooters to do that lately. So we got to get it together, man. That Portland matchup should have woke up everybody. And you let somebody shoot that well against you, nah, you got to have some pride about your perimeter defense, LA. I know we're losing guys, though. You got to understand this, too. Patrick Beverley not on that floor. We let him go to get Mo Bamba, and we were happy we let him go, but not for the reasons that we would love to have been able to say. Patrick Beverley couldn't play. Patrick Beverley was slow. But none of that. It was none of that. We wanted Patrick gone because our coach couldn't stop playing him, despite it not being best for him to be playing in every matchup. That is why he had to go. Unfortunately, what he takes with him is perimeter defense and defensive intangibles and energy and defensive intellect. When you remove that, and then you asking Dennis Schroeder to just replace that, he helped Dennis Schroeder with those things. He made Dennis look better in those situations because you force him to by playing them together all the time. And so now that they're not down there, you asking Malik Beasley and D'Angelo Russell, and you're asking different guys who don't have those intangibles to do those same things and bring that same energy, and it's not going to happen. That is not going to take place. What you did was you replaced those two energetic players with Vanderbilt for your energy, and now you got to ask him to do some of those things. So if he's not on the floor to do those things, don't ask D'Lo to start doing Patrick Beverley stuff. Don't ask, some of these guys, Lonnie Walker, to start doing Patrick Beverley stuff. You are going to find yourself in a situation where they're not going to be able to give that to you. And so I think that might have been some of what you saw against Portland too. It's him used to seeing Patrick Beverley doing all that crap and him asking him to do some of that Patrick stuff and him not being able to at all. So, I supported moving on from Patrick Beverley, but I also understood why it was important that we used him properly, so we never wanted to move on from Patrick Beverley. And that was a bigger picture in and of itself. So this is where the problem lies. Now where do you find that? Because Russell ain't here either. You let him go and he would help with a lot of defensive stuff too. So I'm happy with those guys being gone. And I don't mind them being gone. We just got to adjust to what these guys can do and immediately turn into what it is that they need us to turn into in order for them to be their best selves. And that ain't easy. But it needs to be done now because, again, we are running out of time. So that's what it is, man. Darvin Ham got to put his thinking cap on and start doing things better, man. Better. Because if we keep losing games because of these stupid little schemes or these bad instinctual decisions, then he's going to have to fall on the sword at the end of the season when the team don't make the playoffs. It's probably going to be his job. People don't stick around in LA when they fail this bad, man, especially when it's their fault they fail. I'm telling you. You ain't Luke Walton and them ain't a bunch of kids. So you better get it together, man. And so that's what I got to say to Darvin Ham. I'm not mad at him for being a rookie coach. It is what it is. I wouldn't have put him in this situation in the first place. But we here now. People are telling you what's not working. And, we're starting to understand that the reputation you're going to have is we don't care if it works or not. We're just going to do it. I'm telling you. It didn't work for Mike D'Antoni. It ain't work for Byron Scott. It ain't work for Luke Walton. It ain't work for Frank Vogel. And it ain't going to work for you. Just being honest. So that needs to be said, man. Darvin Ham's going to have to be adaptable if he wants to keep this job. And if he doesn't keep this job, anybody that comes in is going to have to be adaptable, man. You got to be able to make adjustments in-game quickly. And stuff like this with these continuity moves, when we bring that gut out the team and only got a couple minutes left to win, just got to make it work. You got to find a way. Or you're going to fail. And then you got to deal with that. So, fans are going to react. Genie's going to react at the end of the year. So guys got to pull it together. The pressure's there, but so is the opportunity. The trades have been made. The shooters are on the floor. And though Braun is out, we have enough to get victories. We got enough talent to extract from each and every individual to beat these teams that we're running into, especially when they're missing their best guys. Zion going to be out there. Zion is expected to miss another several weeks after re-aggravating his hamstring or whatever his injury was. Forgive me if I didn't get it right. But he re-aggravated that thing earlier this week, and he's now going to miss more time. So, his injury concerns are going to take away from the ceiling of that New Orleans Pelicans team no matter what. That's just what it is. If he can't stay healthy, just like AD, Pelicans ain't going nowhere. It was what it was. It is what it is now. So, at this point, they're just going to have to run out there with what they got, and because of it, it should dumb it down a bit more for us to beat them, and we need to. For more than one reason. For one, they're the team that holds the pick swap with us. So obviously, every matchup against the Pelicans matters a lot. You do not want to find yourself in a situation where you're just continuing to drop games against a team that can take your pick away from you, depending on how well it is. So if you're losing, you're working in their favor. Forgive me for that. But anyway, it's one of those situations where it's like this. If the Los Angeles Lakers are serious about winning, which I believe they are, the most important thing for my team to do, beyond a shadow of a doubt, is to establish a new identity for the players they've just acquired versus the stuff that they were running when they had the older guys in place before the trade. You got to establish that, man. That's what we've been talking about here, and that is exactly the most important thing. Because if we don't, we're going to continue to pretend we're someone we're not just by default. That's what that does. It forces you to have and work with traits that are not your own. We need to shoot more three-point shots. We don't need to shoot under 30 3-point shots anymore. That was the old us. Now we need to up those up to about 40, 45, depending on who we're shooting with. You know what I'm saying? If it's Beasley and them, let it fly. Especially if it's falling. If it's D'Angelo Russell and it's falling, let it fly. Troy Brown, Lonnie Walker, Austin Reeves, all of you guys have been shooting the ball well enough all year long to where you can step into your shot and hit it same way you've been hitting it all year long, comfortably. While those other guys who were shooters shoot the bulk of the threes. And the Russ brick threes are not here. The ones he was bricking, the Patrick Beverly threes that he was bricking in the first half of the season. First half. He couldn't hit a three. Those are gone. Your Kendrick Nunn's brick threes, those are gone. You see what I'm saying? So the players that we need to be careful not to let them shoot, them guys off the team. They're gone. So we need to identify what our new strengths are. Vando makes us a much better rebounding team. Vando, AD, we're incredible defensively when those two are on the floor. You put Troy Brown in the mix, we can lock people down all day. Put Davon Reed on the team, on the floor, now you got even more lockdown defense. That's 4 players you know can lock people up. Don't be afraid to run to that right there. Put Winyon in there with him. Don't be afraid to put that lineup on the floor if we're getting torched defensively. See if the guys who play defense can play defense for you. Don't just get torched while you're living and dying with the offensive end with guys like Beasley and Lonnie. Don't do that. Because at the end of the day, you have your defensive players, and they should be able to help you in those situations. So that's what I want to see, man. Smarter schemes, smarter rotations, and just overall continued hard play. Play hard, man. With Russell and Pat gone, we must play hard. That energy is not going to manifest itself. And you can get torched. Just like Portland did to you, New Orleans can do to you. They have the shooters to do it. So that's where my head is, man. I'm very happy that this day came about so I could finally actually address the team like I needed to. I hadn't been able to do it the way I wanted to because of stuff going on. But at the end of the day, I'm still intent on helping this team win and preparing them for what we have to see every single game if possible. And so that's what it is, man. Of course, I'm going to have something for you at halftime and as well as after the game. My name is BDL44. I thank you all for watching. I'm out.